When you finally say no, the world pauses. At first, you feel a tremor inside, a jolt of guilt, fear, maybe even panic. You've spent years nodding, bending, molding yourself to fit into spaces that were never shaped for you. But when you say no, really say it, something extraordinary happens. The air shifts. The people around you hesitate, surprised, confused. And inside, a flicker of light appears where exhaustion once lived. You see, Carl Jung taught us that every yes we force through clenched teeth is a tiny act of self-betrayal. We do it out of fear of rejection, of conflict, of being seen as selfish. But beneath that fear hides the shadow, the hidden self longing for freedom. When you say no, you peel back the mask. You let the shadow whisper its truth. And for the first time, you taste the sweetness of sovereignty. It's a trembling, imperfect, glorious beginning. The first step on the road home to yourself. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." But how can we become if we're always stuck in the loop of pleasing, apologizing, explaining? Saying no is not just about refusing a task. It's a rupture in the script we've been forced to play. The good child, the perfect partner, the tireless friend. Every time you whisper no, you break a small piece of that role. And here, shadow work begins. Shadow work, as Jung teaches, is not about destroying the dark parts within us. It's about embracing them, listening to the voice that says, "I am tired. I am angry. I am done." When you say no, you open the door to those exiled parts. You welcome home the parts of yourself you've buried under layers of duty and guilt. And though the world may push back, though people may protest, inside you, something stirs awake. It's the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming whole. Saying no is how you step out of the persona, the mask, and let the true self rise. The first time you say no, your body rebels. Your heart races, your stomach knots, your throat tightens as if the word itself is dangerous. Because to your nervous system, it is. For years, maybe decades, you learned that saying no leads to rejection, to disapproval, to abandonment. So your instinct is to rush back, to take it back, to say, "Sorry, I didn't mean it." But pause. Stay in the discomfort. Carl Jung reminds us that what we resist persists. The fear you avoid by saying yes never disappears. It hides in the cracks, waiting to devour you from within. But when you sit with the discomfort, when you let the no land without softening it, you start rewriting your nervous system. You teach yourself that survival is possible without constant compliance. And in that shaky breath, in that trembling pause, the shadow begins to integrate. Saying no is not a weapon. It's a reclaiming. It's how you stop betraying your own body, your own needs, your own soul. And with each no, the old instinct weakens, making space for something stronger. Self-trust. As you keep saying no, something unexpected happens. You begin to see. The fog lifts. You notice the people who only called when they needed something. The friends who disappeared when you set a boundary. The family who called you selfish for resting, for declining, for daring to choose yourself. It's painful at first, this awakening, because you realize you weren't surrounded by love. You were surrounded by convenience. Carl Jung spoke of projection, how others cast their unmet needs onto us, and we, in turn, accept the role they give. But awareness breaks the spell. Suddenly, you hear the hidden contracts. You owe me your time. You must fix my pain. Your no is betrayal. With every no, you shatter those contracts. You start to separate what is yours to carry and what never was. And though it aches, though the loneliness sharpens, you begin to feel something new. Freedom. Not the reckless kind, but the quiet, trembling freedom of finally seeing clearly. If this awakening speaks to you, write in the comments, "I'm waking up." Let's see who else is breaking free. This is where boundaries rise, not as walls, but as soft lines drawn in trembling hands. At first, they feel unnatural. You wonder, am I cruel? Am I pushing people away? But boundaries are not a rejection of others. They are a declaration of self. Carl Jung called it individuation, the journey of becoming distinct, whole, no longer fused with the collective's demands. When you say no, you carve out a sacred space, a home for your soul to rest. Without boundaries, your energy spills into every corner, drained by every plea, every demand. But with them, you begin to taste your own essence. You learn the art of the pause. You give yourself permission to ask, does this nourish me? Does this align with who I am? And as your no's shape your life, something remarkable happens. You discover your yes. A yes that is no longer forced, but alive, wholehearted, real. Now you stand at the edge of something vast, yourself. It's terrifying, isn't it? Without the noise of others' expectations, without the constant pull of should and must, you face a space so wide, so unfamiliar, it almost feels like falling. This is individuation, as Carl Jung called it, the sacred work of becoming your own person. Not the child molded by family, not the partner defined by sacrifice, not the friend shaped by loyalty alone, but you, unmasked, undone, whole. It's messy work. Old roles tug at you like ghost hands, whispering, "Come back, stay small, keep pleasing." But individuation demands you walk forward, into your own life, no longer borrowing meaning from others. And though loneliness wraps around you like a cold wind, within it glows a small flame, the first light of your true self. You realize, saying no is not just defiance, it is devotion, a deep, trembling commitment to the person you are becoming. But oh, the struggle. It's real, raw, relentless. You will doubt yourself. You will ache for the comfort of old patterns, the familiar dance of over-giving and over-explaining. There will be nights when you lie awake wondering if you're losing everyone you love. Because here's the brutal truth. Some people will not stay when you stop overextending. They were never with you. They were with your usefulness. And when you withdraw that currency, they vanish. Carl Jung spoke of the tension of opposites, how transformation requires holding both the agony and the promise of change. This is the storm before the calm. Your heart will break 1,000 small times as you let go of what no longer serves. But each fracture makes space. Each goodbye opens a door. And amid the heartbreak, you begin to hear a quieter voice, your own. Saying no teaches you not just who you are, but who you've been pretending to be. And that truth, though sharp, is your greatest liberation. Then, one morning, something shifts. You wake up, and the heaviness is gone. There's still ache, yes, but underneath it, peace. A quiet you haven't known in years. You sit with your coffee, feel the sun on your face, and for the first time, you realize you're not bracing for impact. You are simply here. Carl Jung taught that true transformation is not loud. It's not grand declarations or dramatic farewells. It's a subtle reordering inside, a quiet refusal to keep betraying yourself. When you say no enough times, you start to belong to yourself again. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining your worth. And in that sacred quiet, you meet the part of you that was waiting all along, the one untouched by chaos. This is peace, not because life is perfect, but because you no longer abandon yourself in the name of belonging. And when you sit in that peace, you start to taste freedom, not as escape, but as homecoming. But peace is not where it ends. In the quiet, something powerful begins to bloom. Without the constant noise of pleasing and proving, you discover a presence inside you, steady, grounded, sovereign. Carl Jung called this the power of silence, not the silence of retreating in fear, but the silence of mastery, of knowing when to act and when to hold still. When you stop explaining, when you stop reacting, people reveal themselves. The ones who relied on your compliance will fidget, provoke, or walk away. But you will stand. No longer a puppet pulled by every emotional string, but a presence unto yourself. This is power born not from dominance, but from restraint. And as you hold your center, you watch the world recalibrate around you. They cannot control what they cannot predict. And you, finally, have become beautifully unpredictable. A soul no longer chained to anyone's script, but your own. Here's where the deeper magic begins. As you say no, as you hold your silence, something cracks, not just in you, but in others. The projections they placed on you, the rescuer, the fixer, the always available one, begin to fall apart. Carl Jung taught that projection is how we avoid our own darkness. We place our unmet needs on others, expecting them to carry what we refuse to face. But when you refuse to play the part, the projector goes dark. Suddenly, they have to sit with their own fear, their own loneliness, their own wounds. And that is when the attacks may come. You may hear, "You've changed. You're selfish now. You used to be kind." Do not fall for it. This is the voice of a broken projection, not a true reflection of you. Stay the course, because as you hold your nose, you hold up a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face what stares back. But that is not your work. Your work is to stop carrying what was never yours, to stop living as a screen for other people's shadows, and to step into the light of your own being. Then comes the moment you feared most. The mask slips. not just theirs, but yours. Without the constant need to please, without the scramble to hold every piece together, you meet the raw face of yourself. And it's humbling. You see the years of exhaustion etched in your skin. You feel the grief of all the times you said yes when you meant no. But alongside the sorrow, something else appears. Tenderness. You realize you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. Carl Jung believed we do not become whole by pretending to be light, but by making the darkness conscious. So when the mask falls, don't rush to cover it. Sit with it. Look into your own tired eyes and whisper, "I see you. I'm here." Because beneath the roles, the masks, the performance, you are already enough. And this truth, fragile as it is, will carry you across every storm that comes. As the dust settles, you enter a new phase, the sacred silence. Not the silence of exile, but the silence of homecoming. You no longer rush to fill every pause with explanation or apology. You no longer panic when someone withdraws because of your boundary. You simply let things be. Carl Jung called this the fertile ground, where individuation takes root, where you listen not to the noise outside, but to the voice within. In this silence, you hear your own breath, feel the rhythm of your own heart. You discover the joy of your own company, and slowly, the craving for external approval softens. You stop measuring your worth by the reactions of others. Instead, you begin to trust the quiet knowing that lives inside you. This is where transformation deepens, not in grand gestures, but in small, quiet moments where you stay with yourself, without running, without numbing, without apologizing. And in that sacred silence, you become whole. But do not be fooled. Silence has a price. When you stop being the fixer, the pleaser, the always available one, people will notice. Some will call you cold. Some will call you selfish. Some will try to pull you back into the old dance. And the ache of being misunderstood will cut deep. Carl Jung reminded us that individuation requires stepping away from the collective, even when it means walking alone for a time. You will grieve the version of you that people loved, the one who bent, who yielded, who stayed small. But hear this, their love was never for your truth. It was for your compliance. When you say no, when you choose peace over performance, you invite only those who can meet you as you are. And yes, it will thin the crowd, but it will thicken your soul. Because the price of silence is steep, but the reward is priceless. Your freedom, your wholeness, your life. And now, the most beautiful part begins. You start reclaiming your energy. Little by little, you notice where your power was leaking. The conversations that drained you, the obligations that left you hollow, the relationships that survived only on your exhaustion. Carl Jung saw the psyche as an energy system. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction either feeds or depletes it. When you stop throwing yourself into every battle, when you stop offering explanations no one asked for, you pull that energy back home. Suddenly, you have the strength to create, to rest, to dream. The days stretch open, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer bleeding yourself dry. And here's the secret. When you conserve your energy, you radiate a new kind of presence. You walk into a room, and people feel it, not because you are loud, but because you are whole. And in that quiet power, you remember, you were never meant to be everywhere, for everyone, all the time. You were meant to be fully here, for yourself. With your energy reclaimed, you become selective, not from arrogance, but from wisdom. You no longer say yes just to be liked. You no longer chase those who never truly saw you. You look around and ask, does this nourish me? Does this align with my truth? Carl Jung taught that individuation requires discernment, the ability to sort what belongs to you from what belongs to the world. And this discernment sharpens with every no you speak, with every moment you choose peace over performance. You start pruning your life like a garden, cutting away the overgrowth, making room for what matters. Yes, some will leave. Yes, some will resent you. But what remains, oh, what remains, will be real, deep, nourishing, and most importantly, you remain. Not as a fragmented self scattered across 100 roles, but as a singular, sovereign soul, fully alive in its own skin. There comes a moment when you realize you owe no one an explanation. Not for your boundaries, not for your silence, not for the ways you've chosen to protect your peace. At first, you want to explain, to soften the blow, to make them understand. But Carl Jung reminds us, the more we explain, the more we hand our power away. You do not need to justify your absence. You do not need to apologize for your no. You are allowed to choose yourself without turning it into a debate. And here's what's remarkable. The moment you stop explaining, you become untouchable. People will push, poke, prod, hoping to drag you back into the old dance. But when you hold your ground in quiet, sovereign dignity, something shifts. They realize they cannot access you through guilt or manipulation. And you, for the first time, stand unmarked. Not because they approve, but because you have approved of yourself. And then, like a thread snapping, something inside you breaks free. You feel it in your chest, a loosening, a widening, a breath you didn't know you were holding. This is the rupture Jung spoke of, the moment the old self cracks to make room for the new. You grieve, yes. You feel the ache of lost connections, of roles you no longer play. But underneath the grief, there's a pulse of exhilaration. You realize you have survived the storm of disapproval. You have faced the fear of abandonment and stayed standing. And in that standing, you become someone new, a person who no longer bends at every gust of wind, a person who knows the shape of their own spine. Carl Jung taught that the goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. And here you are, imperfect, unpolished, gloriously whole. Not because you've pleased everyone, but because you've come home to yourself at last. After the rupture, there is loneliness. Not the loneliness of absence, but the loneliness of rebirth. You walk through familiar places, but they no longer fit. You sit across from people, but the old conversations feel hollow. You scroll through your days and sense a quiet shedding, as if an old skin is slipping away. Carl Jung called this the descent into the self, the phase where you leave the collective behind and walk into your own depths. It is disorienting, raw, tender, but within the ache, something astonishing stirs. You realize you are no longer desperate to belong. You are no longer terrified of standing alone, because now you belong to yourself. And in this quiet exile, you begin to craft a life not from obligation, but from authenticity. It is the loneliest place you will ever stand, and the most sacred. For here, on the edge of everything you've known, you meet the one person you've been running from all along, yourself. And then, something shifts again. The solitude stops feeling heavy. You rise in the morning, not with dread, but with stillness. You move through your days, no longer reaching, no longer grasping. You savor your own company, your own laughter, your own quiet. Carl Jung taught that the solitude of the strong is the path to true freedom. For only when you stand alone can you hear the call of your soul without the noise of the world. And in this space, you become unshakable. People's approval or disapproval lose their grip. The old hooks of guilt, duty, and shame fall away. You begin to live, not as a reaction to others, but as an expression of your own essence. This is the solitude that births creators, healers, visionaries. The solitude that no longer wounds, but fortifies. And when you look in the mirror now, you see not someone broken, but someone beautifully whole. A soul tempered by fire, yet unburned. And now, you step into the final stage. You become the creator. No longer shaped by circumstance, no longer molded by others' desires. You begin to shape your own reality. You choose where your energy flows, where your attention lingers, where your heart opens. Carl Jung believed that when we integrate the shadow, we move from fate to freedom. You are no longer just surviving life, you are composing it. You let go of what drains. You draw close to what nourishes. You say yes, but only when your whole body lights up with truth. You say no, with a soft, fierce grace. And here's the most beautiful part. You no longer fear losing people because you have found yourself. The world around you may shift. Relationships may change. But you stand steady, not because life is perfect, but because you are rooted in your own wholeness. This is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a life lived awake, alive, and unshakably true. If you have walked with me this far, know this. A part of you is already awake. A part of you already knows that love means nothing if it costs you your soul. A part of you is ready to trade approval for authenticity, chaos for peace, performance for presence. So I ask you gently, fiercely, with all the tenderness I can offer. Are you ready to be misunderstood, to be rejected, to be feared? All for the sake of being free? Carl Jung taught us that the greatest journey is the one inward, the one where we face the parts we've hidden, the parts we've feared. You are already on this path. Every no you speak, every boundary you set, every quiet moment you claim for yourself, it is all part of the return. So stand tall. Let the world say what it will. choose your peace. Choose your truth. Choose yourself. Again and again and again. This is where your real life begins. If this story touched something inside you, share it in the comments. Say, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many of us are walking this path together. And if you want to keep exploring the depths of healing, shadow work, and coming home to yourself, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more waiting for you here.